Can you imagine there was world before ChatGPT?
Feels like another lifetime now.
We started doing a little bit of product build for ourselves, and then we showed it to a few people. And so what it does is basically it takes any long form content which is in audio, video, or a large document. You put it into the system, upload it, and then it understands it in semantic manner. You are as good as your people, processes, and the technology around it. If you don't have the right processes in place, or if you don't have the right people with the right attitude, there's no way any technology can serve anywhere.
Welcome to the DevReady podcast. Joining me on the DevReady podcast today, I have Nikhil Singh. Nikhil, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you on. Now, for those of you that are new to the podcast or don't know how I do this, I've never actually met Nikhil before today, so I'll let him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his background and who he is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony. I'm a computer scientist by background. Been doing software development for last 20 plus years. Left the corporate world very early on in 2004, 2005, and been building startups or helping startups grow for a long time. I love building products, and for past quite a few years, we have been helping businesses adopt AI. We have built a couple of products as well. Decipher, one of them, which is doing really well in the market. Yeah, and that's pretty much what we do day in and day out.
So, what's Decipher? Just give us a little bit of background on what that product is.
Absolutely. So this was pre ChatGPT era. Can you imagine there was world before ChatGPT?
I know it feels like another lifetime now.
We used to do a lot of reading and listening of podcast, and it was always a challenge of what to listen, what to read. And so we came up with this idea of, what if we could build a summary of what is there in that, and then if it's interesting enough, then go deep dive in it. So then James and I partnered up on, and we started doing a little bit of product build for ourselves, and then we showed it to a few people, and that became. So what it does is basically it takes any long form content which is in audio, video, or a large document. You put it into the system, upload it, and then it understands it in semantic manner, and then you can create as many. You can repurpose that content in as many ways. So you can build audio reels, videograms, your blog show notes, your blog post, whatever you need to. It extracts codable codes and
Mhm.
summarization. You can have an interaction with the content. So it's like a two-way interaction rather than a one-way
Okay.
interaction, which is what generally most of the content right now is. So that's what Decipher does.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. So, I can imagine that was a bit of a challenge to put together pre ChatGPT because
Correct.
having contextual understanding of text was the holy grail at that point until
Correct.
ChatGPT and the transformer model came around. So,
Correct. Yes.
how did you approach that? Was that more like a machine learning route or neural
Yeah, we were
networks?
Yeah, we were doing a couple of things. We were obviously using models like Spacey and a few things to understand what's the important bit and building a knowledge graph of entities, what are the main entities which are being talked about, and building a small, graphical structure of what things are, and then kind of building clusters of information and then saying, oh, this is what talked about, and then, doing topic analysis and saying, oh, these are the main topics which were talked about, and then, kind of go. So that was what we were doing before GPT
Yeah.
API came across.
Did you then transition over to like the GPT and have that change if you
Yeah,
found it
yeah,
was
yeah.
performing better?
Yeah, yeah, we did. We definitely, as soon we were lucky enough to get an early access to OpenAI APIs as well. So we did. So we used a lot of APIs, OpenAI APIs to understand, but
Hmm.
we were still using some of the Spacey and NER models to understand the entities and do that.
Okay.
So it was kind of a hybrid model,
Yep.
getting the best of the both worlds.
It's interesting to see that, yeah, there was a lot of people don't, they think AI was ChatGPT and onwards, but the term AI has been around since like the
Ah,
50s, I think.
I
The
agree.
word
I
artificial
agree.
intelligence is like mid 50s or maybe mid
Yeah,
70s. I could be wrong there, but it's been a
yeah,
long time. And the concept of neural nets and all this sort of stuff like Terminator, he says it's a neural net processor. Like he mentions
yes.
that 30 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, computer vision, forecasting, all of branches of machine learning and AI have been there for a very
Yeah.
long time. Before even we were doing before the Decipher product, we were building computer vision models where, you could find, how when you do a job, a contractor is goes out and does a job, they do they take a picture of what was there, and then they do the job, and then they take a picture after, and then they
Yep.
submit their invoices. It's kind of finding out what the work they did was. That was another project we worked on.
Yeah, and we've done similar things in the with computer vision in 2010, if you
Exactly.
believe, when there was OpenCV, if you know that tool,
Yes.
and it
Yeah.
was
I know.
very rudimentary, very difficult, but we did like real time tracking of a replica Mars robot with an overhead camera and then determining its actual location and orientation to drive it around a fake
Oh
Mars
wow.
surface. I still
Oh
remember that
wow.
because it was quite challenging to put together, and it was very early on in like the tools that you could do without actually being probably educated in that space either. So I did very
Got it.
basic AI. I'm a computer scientist as well by trade from
Yes.
uni, and there's very
Yes.
little AI that we do in there.
Yes, absolutely. That reminds me of another thing which we, and it's very similar one. We had an overhead camera on top of a recycling, the conveyor belt,
Yep,
and the only objective of that was to understand what kind of a garbage is going through, and understand whether it's the bottles were translucent or colored, or they had the caps on or not, because the more white or translucent bottles, the better it is for recycling.
okay.
So getting analytics and understanding what kind of utilization of your conveyor belt is and what
Hmm.
kind of a garbage you are, you can negotiate that, the previous dump was not good, or you had
Yep.
that kind of value. So yeah, so that very interesting when
It's
you mentioned that.
interesting, yeah, interesting ways that things could have been achieved, and now it's just an API call to ChatGPT or to OpenAI effectively, and it can do all of that for you. But they've
Yeah,
poured billions and billions of dollars into that infrastructure and the ability to do that. So that's
correct.
why that transition has come. So
Yes.
then once sort of ChatGPT came out, now you focus more in sort of making AI accessible to businesses.
Hmm. So
Let us know what's a little bit about that.
So what happened was, while we were building Decipher, and obviously as part of the holy grail of startup is you talk to your customers, and we started talking to our customers, and we spoke what around 250, 300 customers of ours, and we started talking, and they started saying, the product is great, but can you do a bit of this workflow? Can we add a little bit of integration to this? Can we add an integration to this? So that kind of started becoming a flavor of the whole thing. And that's when we realized there are quite a few SaaS product is great, but there are a lot of almost every business has a nuanced workflow of what they want, and that's where I think having a consultancy or an agency which helps in doing that and taking what's already available, whether it's Decipher or any other tool like a CRM or a ERP system, and building an AI layer around it, that became a much more powerful way of understanding of how we can solve those problems. So that's how we kind of started doing that work as a side, and then that became the main thing as well. So what we do is now is we understand when we walk into a business, we do a little bit of discovery with the with the with the customer, and they understand what their the journey of onboarding a client to actually serving them, and then if they need to, and understand what all are data repetitive or challenges which their business sees, and say, oh, here are two processes, customer support and onboarding, where we can automate this stuff. And there's a lot of discretion. It's not only rule based, now there's a you can have decision logics and discretionary power which can be tuned and worked upon so that you don't have to change it. And that becomes kind of the power of these LLMs. And then while you're doing that, you're also building a knowledge base, which can then enable for a next workflow very fast. So that's becoming kind of the kind of mantra for us to go in and help the businesses. And that's how we're making AI accessible to everyone.
And in those discussions with those businesses, have you noticed that a lot of them don't have the systems and processes in place to then bring AI into? So there's like that initial step that needs to come in place to standardize the process.
That, yeah, we see that there's sometimes, and obviously you are as good as your people, processes, and the technology around it. If you don't have the right processes in place, or if you don't have the right people with the right attitude, there's no way any technology can serve anywhere. So yes, you're right. There have been cases where the processes had to be evolved or improved, so that we know, okay, a form comes in, this happens, and kind of document that whole process a little stronger in a manner which makes it more robust and more powerful, and then kind of apply the automation layer on top of that. So yes, you're right. There have been businesses where we found that, oh, okay, we need to change some of the fundamentals as well.
And that's probably a key thing for someone listening out there. It's you need to have a process in place or at least a plan and a design. It doesn't have to be implemented, but as
No,
long as you know what the process is and you know what steps you're meant to execute, then you can find out a way to automate it. Because
correct.
AI doesn't just solve everything. It can,
No.
but that's not the best use of it either. It's going to be very expensive and just burning tokens.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of the one of the things which we say, it's not like a TV which you open a box and put it up and it starts working. AI is always where you need to bring in, you need to, just like an employee, you need to train your employee that how they need to behave inside the business. The same way we say about AI, that once you bring in, you need to kind of tune and train it so that it works with your business rather than just working the way it has been learning for last 10 years.
Yeah, it's challenging because I think a lot of people just they see what ChatGPT can do and it can just answer any question. And they think,
Yeah.
all right, if that can do that, I can just plug that in and it'll solve any problem in my business. But
Yes.
well, as I mentioned, it can solve a lot of the problems if you give it the information, but then you're gonna have to repeat that information every single time you want it to do something. You
Yes.
can do some
Yes.
basic stuff setting up GPTs, but I don't think there's big adoption in that. And then there's more advanced ways you can use it. But you also
Correct.
don't, from experience, you don't want to use it in a repetitive task that's got the same steps every single time.
No.
Because then the AI spends time to figure out what the next step is, and it doesn't
Is
need to do that. So you're wasting time, you're wasting cost, and it's just slowing down the process potentially too.
correct. Absolutely.
I think, yeah. Are you seeing sort of a big shift in the agents? Because that seems to be the agentic workflows or agent workflows has probably been the new buzz term after ChatGPT for the past maybe 12 months.
I would still say that a lot of businesses are still at that stage where we are at the basic workflows and building workflows. Agentic, and there's always a a good workflow or an agentic workflow. There's a you can use those words interchangeably, like how, and again, the part which is very important is, does your workflow is making decisions on its own, like is it making those choices of whether what to do, where which path to flow. And if it's doing that, there is a bit of agentic workflow in there already. It's just that
Hmm.
it's not a cluster of multiple agents which are working with each other.
Yep.
So we although we are working on some of the workflows where we are interacting with multiple agents, but primarily I would say 70% of it is single agentic workflows where you
Yep.
have a workflow with single agent which has the power of decision making and can make those choices. I think that's a more common use case at the moment because the bar is so low for improvements. I don't think so we need to go into agentic at the moment yet, but
Yep.
for some use cases like customer support, a little bit of FinOps, where you need to understand the data which is in tabular structure, and also you need to understand a bit of reasoning and bit of tab SQL, text to SQL as well. So there we are working with few agents, but other than that, it's pretty much a single agentic
Yep.
workflow.
I think that's similar to what we've seen. And then a lot of like browsing on LinkedIn, you see all these AI and agent workflows being posted everywhere, and everyone's like, leave this comment and I'll share the workflow with you. And they never do. But what you see in those is the only thing that's agentic about them is that they're doing a web search
Yes,
or a lead comes in and now we're going to do 5 different web searches. But the task is still do this step, do a web
do this.
search, come back with results and pass it. It's still just a normal workflow. It's
Correct.
not you're giving a goal to the agent and it's going away and working and coming back for X amount of time
No.
and giving you a result. That's what the true agent is. And I've seen very, very little use cases of where that's actually suitable in our day to day or with our clients as well. So
Absolutely.
is that your experience too?
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely. And I completely agree on the LinkedIn one. Those are more of I would say, close to scammy,
Yeah,
even if
almost.
almost scammy, where they're trying to clickbait and get a, viewership on LinkedIn, but other than that, they're pretty
Yeah.
much they don't work, especially as soon as you add another edge case or something which, you know, the normal, if your workflow is A, B, C, and you add A, delta B or delta C, it just doesn't work anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then when you see one of those workflows, they're generally NAN, and you see one and it's got 50 different nodes and they're all linking to each other and all doing stuff. It's just doing a lot of Google searches effectively in the
Yeah,
back, and they're trying to build a profile on a lead, which seems to be
correct.
most of the cases. But yeah, a true agent, like coding is the only space I've seen the agents be able to actually, this is what I want to achieve. You go and
Yes,
figure it out and come back with an outcome. I haven't
yes,
seen too many useful agent use cases outside of sort of that workspace, I think. Even some of the
yeah,
demos where they're like calling up restaurants or doing these bookings for you, unless it's trying to decide the entire flow, you're telling it to go and do one step. So
correct.
it's always a bit iffy, yeah.
Yeah, I think customer support we have seen is there is a couple like you if you have a refund and a a dispute agent and a refund agent and a a upgrade agent, and then your response request comes in, and then you know what needs to be done, and then you hand it off to that particular agent, and then they
Hmm.
know what they are doing, and then they come back. So it's a bit of there, but again, it's not a single here is what your goal is, and you need to go and
Yeah.
plan and come back. That's not the case. That's
Yeah.
pretty much coding is where it's working at the moment
I
most
think
of
so. I
the
think
time.
that's probably the only space, because that's going to be a lot of podcasts I'm listening to, or like videos and talks from Anthropic and OpenAI. It's like, how do they bring the um like the CLI tools or the tools like that breakthrough to other
Yeah.
industries, because they're not there yet.
Yes. I think the other one which I was again we've been discussing is you know storytelling or script, video scripting or video telling, where you say here is what I want, and then it goes and says let me create a story, then let me create a storyboard, then let me
Hmm.
think of all the characters about this, and then kind of so it's kind of you're giving a single step and saying I want a final video, and then it's going out and thinking about what all things it need to do before it can start. So that's another area. It's very similar to coding, because it's art
Yep.
and science, and the same thing is in video generation or thing. It's art and science. There's a science to it, but there's a lot of art to it as well. So I
Yeah.
think that's another area
Once it
where
starts getting creative, then it has flexibility, and that's probably, yeah, where,
correct,
like you're saying, it becomes more agentic.
correct.
So, what are some of the common pitfalls you're noticing with the clients? If are they trying to do things on their own first? Are you seeing that?
Yeah. Well, they think they are, because they say, "Oh, are you using AI?" Yes, we are using AI. And okay, what? Oh, so we use Copilot. So that's their AI at the moment is Copilot and ChatGPT. And unfortunately, even with ChatGPT or Copilot, some of them they're so we were speaking to a client, and they said we've said not to use any of those ChatGPT tools because
Hmm.
it's not, we haven't gone through the legal and things and whether we can put our data or not. But one of random, machines was down, and they tried to fix it, and they realized that there's ChatGPT there. So that's even worse, right? So
Yep.
one, we know that people are using it because everyone else is using it. So there's no way you can stop your staff using it. So there's a better way
Yep.
is to get one step ahead and say, oh, here's a team license or and a license which kind of safeguards you that your data is not getting directly leaked into the training data and someone else will be seeing it. So at least that basic prevention is there. So yeah, and the other, so Copilot and ChatGPT is their AI. Some of the progressive ones have tried to build workflows on ChatGPT. So like either build a custom GPT, or they know they have a set of prompts which they have stored, and then they say when this happens, we run this prompt, when this happens.
Hmm.
And so now they know a little more about what works and what doesn't. So when then now if you need to convert that into a workflow with all the edge cases and all the permutations, it becomes a little easier for us to work with them because now they know a little bit more about that
Yep.
process.
They've documented that and it's there.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's interesting. There's, from again podcast things I'm listening to where they cite things that are happening in the industry. There's like what they call the shadow AI economy that's happening, where an organization says you can't use ChatGPT, but then everyone pulls out their phone and does everything on
that's
their own accounts, hidden
correct.
from the company. So
Yes,
it's being used, and then a
it
lot of the
is.
problem is Copilot. You mentioned that from Microsoft. I think they've done a terrible rollout in that product, and it doesn't provide the value that they were selling. And then
Yes,
that's why people are now having to use ChatGPT on their own to actually get the benefit, because you use that and you can get an amazing result. And then you start using
correct.
Copilot and the chat is just not the same, even though it's meant to
No,
be running by the same models.
yes. Absolutely. And that's the biggest challenge. You try two things, and if one is a 10x better than some, and then the company forces you to use the bad one or
Yep.
the suboptimal one. There's no way someone is going to use that, especially if they've got used to the better one. So that's always a challenge.
Yeah, it's difficult to find the tool that works and may allow. And we've got a decent sized team, but on a large organization, again, it's hard to then roll that out and have the right policies in place. And I know data is a concern, and I'm worried about that when we use things as well. But
Yes.
realistically, the data that's going into it, the amount of data that's going into ChatGPT daily that they
Mm,
then use to retrain on, and
mm.
being able to find your specific needle in the trillions and trillions of
Of
queries,
tokens, yes.
I think it's overblown how much of a potential risk that may be.
Yes, it's just that it's a fear which is there.
Yeah.
That's about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have that fear too. I still make temporary chats. But think realistically, thinking about it now, it's like, is it really that much risk? Like, what comes back is never going to be the exact sentence or anything that you've put in. People's
Yeah,
names and identifiable
yeah,
data potentially when you ask it to make up names, but how you
yeah.
even track that back and identify that it's done that, it's going to be impossible.
Yeah, I think it started off when, it was very, very early days of ChatGPT when they had very minimal guardrails and they just launched, when someone put in their I think it was Samsung or someone put out their, you know, IP information and
Yep.
did some work on it, and then someone else asked about a very similar query, and it just extracted that information from there because that was the most relevant it found and gave it back to someone else
Hmm.
in that chat. So I think that when you're in a very niche, let's say you're a space X and you're
Yeah,
talking about a
maybe something will happen then.
very, very, yeah. If you're talking about marketing, who cares about what your marketing plan is
Oh,
compared to everyone else has the same marketing plan?
they're all going to be similar. Everyone's asking ChatGPT, make me a marketing plan, help me design a landing page.
Exactly. So I think it goes down to very niche. So biotech or someone doing cancer research, maybe you have a very niche, and then two people ask the same questions, you might get a
Yeah.
response.
Well, it's a very specific domain, not much training data. So that makes sense.
Correct. Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it that, but yeah, I do remember that issue with Samsung. So in your so 3 years with ChatGPT, what's some of the best benefits you've seen businesses have gained out of setting up these workflows? Like, what's some of the key workflows that have stood out of mind just to see to help anyone that's listening with some ideas?
Absolutely. I think where we have seen the most amount of value is where every think of it as a knowledge base for a particular client. So, for example, I'll take a very everyone in Australia knows what a strata is. Strata is a company which manages your building or common area. Uh, there's a lot of documents which are generated for a starter, like all the inspections, the pest inspections, the reports, all of those things, uh, all the general meetings, minutes of meetings, all those things are generated. And then at the end of the quarter or year, there's a report generated about, the strata, how, what was the corpus, financial, all those things. And that is done by uh, an analyst who goes through all those documents and then converts it into a report. And we built a workflow where you dump in all those documents. We unstructured documents could be plans, could be invoices, could be reports. You extract all the relevant data and build a semi-structured knowledge base for that particular property. And then you say, oh, okay, here is a report which needs to be built. What are the questions which I need to answer for this particular report? So now using that knowledge base, it kind of tries to extract all those information like in a advanced RAG manner. It pulls that
Yep.
information and starts to fill that report. Then it goes next round. It says, okay, now I have the information. Can I structure this in a format which is what a human readable would be? So then it goes and says, here's the information. Can you write it in a structure which is, useful for human reading purposes? It goes that, right? Then, so now you have from 50 or 60 documents, 3 to 5 pages, 20 pages documents into a report in 10 to 12 minutes, and then a analyst goes through that report and reviews it and says, yep, 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 and says now it's looking pretty good. They spend an hour on the report and they're ready to go and export it as a PDF. That itself is a massive win or a massive gain in that workflow. And
Yep.
this is same across insurance, personal injury lawyers, workers' comp, where you have a lot of those documents, information coming through and putting into a knowledge base and then converting into a workflow, whether it goes to case management software, whether it goes to their strata management, whether it goes into report. So that workflow becomes really, really powerful. And that's where the most of the value is. So it's kind of trying to say, what I'm trying to say is, if you abstract it a little bit, a lot of knowledge is unlocked into unstructured data at the moment in the business, whether it's in documents or in your different silos of systems. Can we
Hmm.
pull that out, build a knowledge graph for you, and then build workflows on top of that?
And it's, yeah,
That's where the
really just
value.
centralizing all that information so it can be surfaced by the employees and then help them speed up all their work. Because it's
Correct.
most deployments are going to be very similar, I'm assuming.
Yes, very
What you do,
similar.
it's upload documents, process them, have a chat interface potentially to be able to query it, and then generate specific content.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And
pretty
then the
much
workflows will be depending what tools they need to use,
correct.
move shift data from A, move it to B, or whatever
Correct.
process,
Yeah,
make some decisions on what sort of data it is or whatever it may be.
correct. Correct.
Yeah.
The other one is data reconciliation. You know how building a single golden record across the business was always a challenge.
Hmm.
Now that we have a little more fuzzy and LLMs for us to do the fuzzy matching between an address, which is ABC XYZ road and ABC dash XYZ road. Now it
Yeah.
knows that, oh, maybe ABC XYZ is a very similar thing. So doing those kind of tasks becomes much more economical and possible for the businesses to do. So
Yeah.
bringing that silos of information into a single record also help is quite useful.
And really, that's just it allows everyone to do what everyone calls the higher value tasks. Someone doesn't have to go through and look at the data and identify those matching records. You
Yes,
can then have spent more time dealing with customers or improving processes internally or working on a project that will add more value. It's really thinking about how to shift people to that rather
yes,
than I think trying to think on how to save wages and get rid of people.
yeah,
It's how do you do more with less or how do you do more
yes.
with the same, not more with less.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. We have been trying to say we're building Iron Man suits for your staff.
Yeah, just have the person, but augmented, allow them to do
Yes.
more and better.
More, yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
It's a hard thing, I think, for a lot of people to get around with how much benefit it can do, especially if you've only used ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and you have to
yes.
ask it a question, then you have to copy and paste back and forth and then copy something else and go back and forth that way. Once you
Yes.
see a workflow that can actually deliver step by step and move data and like an email will come in and then add it to your CRM automatically,
Yes. Yes.
that can then save you 15 minutes of copying and pasting or doing stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For example, uh, and that's absolutely right. And it's when you're using chat, and this is something again which we try to explain, but a lot of people don't understand is when you are running that workflow on ChatGPT, for example, even you have the prompts, it's you who's driving them. It's you and
Yeah.
your cognitive time is still there where you're doing that stuff. Think of that as when that 15 minutes of yours are not being utilized in that and that's already been done. And the only thing you need to do is come back and review it for a couple of minutes. So that mind shift of someone else has done it for you and now you
Mhm.
just need to review it versus you doing it one by one, that's the biggest unlock which we need to think of.
Yeah, and it takes time to think like that as well because you're more of a reviewer than a doer when you work with
Correct.
the AI. It's making
Yes.
sure the content's correct and accurate and does what it's supposed to do. It's not just mindlessly assuming everything it does is correct.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and I think then the biggest problem with how everyone works now with what they need to think about is that context switching. So when you swap from one task to another, and then if you try and jump back into what you were doing before you move, so if you were doing task A, go to task B because an email's come in and you have to act your policies, you have to act on it immediately. Then you
Yes.
jump back to task A.
Correct.
You've now reset your mind and you have to start again. And there's another 15 minutes just to get into the right mindset and the flow of things. So that
Yes.
time is reduced. So you get more output just because of that benefit, let alone what the AI can save you in time as
That's
well.
very, very true. Yeah, I know. I remember reading that, that meme which was there, where someone is working and then someone comes, hey, quick question, and they take off their headphones and answer that quick question,
Yep.
and then they forget where they were, and it's now a 15 to 20 minute reset of everything.
Yeah.
So it's you're
And it
absolutely right.
happens, especially when you're in an office. I think it happens a lot more than potentially when you're
And
working from home.
correct.
But
Someone
you
taps
do
on the
get the
shoulder.
teams. Yeah, when you get the teams flashing, you want to look at it and you need to see, all right, from my perspective, it's if I'm not answering someone's question, I'm holding them up. So I have to answer it. And then I have to
Answer.
figure
Yeah.
out how to get back into my job.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's still a problem. And that's where, yeah, those knowledge bases of an organization can assist because now there's not one person who knows everything. You've got the
Hmm.
one AI that hopefully can help and answer everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
if anyone's looking at moving, say, beyond sort of just the basic chat interface, what are some
Hmm.
key tips you can give them before we wrap up on how they should approach it?
I think few fundamental things which we always say. One, understanding which the processes, having that process in a more robust manner is very important before you start going and doing. Then, whenever you're choosing a project, whether it was software or now it's AI, is having a very definite metrics and outcomes associated with. Don't just go because we need to. Having a very defined outcome, that
Hmm.
what is going to help me? Oh, it's going to help me get uh, the reporting time reduced, or whether the workflow now improves. Previously, it used to take 7 days. Now it takes 3 days. Whatever that is, whatever outcome you're looking for, that needs to be well defined. Third is, you know, don't find if find someone who's invested in, whether it's in-house, outsourced, dev agency, whatever. Find someone who has done something like similar or is in that area, because there's the simple, the simple workflow works really well. It starts failing when you have those uh, edge cases, error scenarios,
Yeah.
and in a business, when did that happen that your business runs smoothly, right? It's always that
Yeah.
something
The
goes
happy path only works
works
very
right.
infrequently.
Correct. Exactly. And that's a myth which generally start, oh, this is just this much. No, it's not. It's what happens if this happens, what happens if this happens. And that's where, someone who has that knowledge and can even tell you that this is just the happy part. There's so many other things which you need to think about, is the right one to start talking to.
Yeah, and that's a challenging thing to identify all those things, but you can build it up over time if you have the processes in
Correct.
place, capture,
Absolutely.
monitor, and record them.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Nikhil, it's been a pleasure chatting to you today. Thank you so much for coming onto the DevReady podcast. And if anyone wants to find out more about yourself, how can they do that?
Uh, Two best ways, LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn, Nikhil Singh, and our website, ai2easy.com.au. That's the best two ways to reach us.
And we'll add all of that into the show notes. And once again, thank you for joining me on the DevReady podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Speak soon. Thank you.